Safety is the engine and you are the key that starts it. If we are not safety conscious, we would end up unconscious. To make us think and to answer the question, is hospital a safe place? We have Dr. D.J. Christopher, Associate Director, CMC Vellore, and the chairperson of this conference with his speech. Following his address, he will introduce the chief guest, Dr. T.S. Ravikumar, Director, Jipmer Hospital. Over to sir.
Dr. Ravikumar, the Director of Jipmer and a good friend, my co-administrators, other members on the dais, and ladies and gentlemen. It's a proud privilege for me to greet you on the occasion of the inaugural of the first National Safety and Occupational Health Conference. Safety in CMC has a fairly long history, and it got put together and organized in the last few years, and there are several well-structured activities to sustain safety. Occupational health again has been in fragments, been looked after over the years. But as Associate Director of Human Resources, I had a selfish desire and agenda to bring up occupational health. And as it is globally in most countries, we wanted it to come along with safety, hospital safety. And this has been achieved in the last few months. And today, therefore, is the time in which we formally herald the launch of these two together and tell the rest of the country that this is a model that they need to follow. Over the next 2 days, I hope all of you will go back challenged, go back with a lot more knowledge and ideas of how you can take back some of these things and set them up in your own centers. And together I hope we can make the hospitals in our country safe. We can look after the welfare of the healthcare workers, each one of us, many of us, and also work towards the safety of the people of our country at large. Now, to engage you as the first talk, I want to pose this question: is hospital a safe place? It seems almost an absurd question to ask, because we give patients, when they are in great distress, come to hospitals for relief of their distress. When you give people utmost care and take care of their comfort, you call that hospitality. Therefore, it appears paradoxical to ask, is hospital a safe place? The title may be provocative, maybe my lecture also may be, and I hope this will start getting you to think about what we perceive as a safe place. Medical errors is a term that has kept up in the last decade several times. And today, there's no doubt that medical errors lead to death and injury. In US alone, 98,000 hospitalized patients die due to preventable medical errors. A third of hospitalized patients experience adverse events while they are in the hospital. And 7% of these patients, these one-third, are harmed permanently or die because of errors in the hospital. Now, is this a US phenomenon or does it happen in other places? This is data from Canada. And in Canada, which is a much smaller country with a smaller population, 24,000 hospitalized patients die annually from medical errors. And 7.5% of medical and surgical admissions lead to adverse events, which include death, disability, prolonged hospital stay, and of which 37% is preventable. So this is the same all over the world. In fact, there's data from Australia also, very similar, from Italy. Now, this is one of the titles of one of the articles. Hospitals are dangerous places. And this looked at the intensive care information. It looked at people that are discharged well from intensive care over the week. So this is Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and so on up to Saturday. And this is the actual graph that you have to look at. And it is evident that the lowest number of people are discharged well on a Sunday. And the highest number of people discharged well falls on a Friday. Through the week, you can see a pattern. And you can see towards the weekend, there is a dip. Is there an explanation? Yes, there is. In most hospitals and globally, there is a thinning of staffing during the weekends. Florence Nightingale has already been quoted before. She said, "It may seem a strange principle to enunciate. The first requirement of a hospital is that it should do the sick no harm." Now, are these over-reportings? This is an important question because we live in an era of sensationalization. We know that the press takes up things which are sensational and publicizes it. Has this caught on to the medical fraternity? Perhaps not, because healthcare system has no system for reporting errors without retribution. If any doctor admits to an error, instantly he is criminalized. In fact, people believe that only 1% to 7% of medical errors ever get reported. Therefore, if anything, there is an underreporting and not an overreporting. Now, this is another headline: 1 in 3 patients harmed during hospital stay. And when such information goes to the public, what is the impact on them? Now, this was studied in US, and the perception of patients, 60% of patients, after reading this information, felt that errors are common in hospital. 30% felt serious errors are common. And 80% feared contracting infection while at hospital. 71% were scared of medication mistakes, and 65% were scared of surgical mistakes. So our patients, when they are informed of the hazards in hospital, are afraid to come to hospitals. This is a data on risky activities. It will be first surprising even that hospital may be considered a risky activity, but you will be surprised when you see the information. The other risky activities are driving, offshore rig, coal mining, bungee jumping, rock climbing, timber work, and so on. And if you divide these into dangerous, regulated, and ultra-safe, you would have expected hospital to be the ultra-safe one. But you find that hospital is one of the most dangerous, along with timber work, rock climbing. And some of the safer ones are airlines, firearms. So I want to just deviate a little bit to the airline or aviation model. That is also a complex industry with human error that can lead to injury and death. And many factors that lead to injury and death are quite similar in healthcare and in aviation. However, the methods of aviation training are much more professional, much more to the point of avoiding and reporting errors. Therefore, when a group of physicians, nurses, and pilots were questioned on certain aspects that lead to injuries and mistakes, this is how the survey went. Pilots, does fatigue negatively impact your performance? 74% said yes, but only 30% of physicians and nurses said yes. Do you reject advice from juniors? 3% said yes, but 45% of us said yes, we reject advice from juniors. Is error analysis system wide? 100% in airlines industry. Their analysis is exhaustive and complete and thorough, whereas only 30% in the medical field. Do you think you make mistakes? 100% of pilots said yes, and only 30% of us agreed that we make mistakes. Is it easy to discuss and report mistakes? 100% of pilots said yes, and only 56% said yes. And this study was done probably in the US. But if this was done in India, that would have been more like 1%, certainly less than 5%. We just do not find it possible or easy to discuss our mistakes. Going back to the aviation model, they have something called Aerial Safety Reporting System. And since this was put in place in 1974, death from aviation plummeted. There was one fatal accident per 140 miles flown. It became one for every 1.5 billion miles flown today, which is 10 times. The risk came down 10 times. Aviation has put a great deal of research into human error, and in particular, they use simulators for training and assessing competency. We are just beginning to look at simulators for our training and assessing competency. I hope we take this forward with more enthusiasm. I want to look at another model and try to see if we can draw a message from there. This is from earthquakes that hit the globe, two large ones in 2010. One was in Chile, another was in Haiti. And the Chilean one was the strongest, one of the strongest on record, but paradoxically caused less damage than the Haitian one. So this is the Haitian one. The magnitude was 7, and 200,000 people, that is 2 lakh people, died due to this. And you can see pictures of devastation there. The Chilean one occurred 2 months later. Its magnitude was 8.8, and there were several 6 and higher aftershocks. And this is known to be the 5th largest earthquake since 1900, and 500 times stronger than the Haitian one, but only 1,000 people died. So this was analyzed. And the finding of the analysis is that a major factor in the difference in death was due to the difference in building codes. Simple things that we flout every day in our country. In Chile, the design accommodates tremors, and Chilean government was able to meet the needs of the afflicted, and Haiti could not. So here was a government that was prepared for disaster. And then in fact, initially, they even rejected aid from overseas. But when the aid eventually went to Chile, they reported this. Chile has a very well organized and have significant experience, disaster preparedness, readiness, and response. So by good codes, by good preparedness, the death was only 1,000, whereas it was 2 lakhs. In an earthquake which was 500 times less intense in another country. So before closing, I want to take you to the Amri story, which again was alluded to by more than one of us. Let me see if I can get the mouse to work. So this is a disaster in which 89 people lost their lives. Please watch as firemen try to put off the fire.
To bring the fire under control. They are now claiming that the fire has been brought under control, but smoke can still be seen coming out of various places.
Sorry.
Well, the fire is
Now, if you go down this clip, you'll see that several people are waiting and watching. Now, this is not a scene that you would expect. You would expect people to be going and rescuing people. And you can see people leaning out of windows and looking down. Why are people not rescuing? Because they are helpless. Because the safety standards have been so flouted that there is no fire escape. And they are trying various other methods to try and get people down. And carefully watch again how you see people leaning out of the windows, helplessly trapped. You can see those helpless faces. Some even attempting to see if they can jump out.
Giving in to show that because there have been not many escape routes.
Now, many of the mistakes that I reported earlier were from people that gave good care to foundational principles. There was no major flouting of norms. Yet, because there was no proactive safety measures, a lot of mistakes occurred. But when we flout fundamental norms, it can be catastrophic, and we have seen it happen in other hospitals. So, dear friends, I hope this challenges all of us to focus on the proceedings of the next 2 days and get the most of it and continue to think to see and make our institutions as accident-free and as safe as possible. Thank you very much. Dear friends, it's my proud privilege to introduce the chief guest of today, Dr. T.S. Ravikumar. He is the director of the Jawaharlal Institute Postgraduate Medical Education and Research, what is fondly known as JIPMA, Puducherry, our neighbors, although not our state. Dr. Ravikumar has come back from US after several decades of working there and excelling in different capacities to take over and turn this institution around. He completed his MS General Surgery from Madras Medical College and then went on to obtain the American Board in Surgery. He has also obtained the fellowships of the Royal Colleges of Canada and Edinburgh. He has several prestigious appointments, including those of Associate Professor in Harvard Medical School, in Yale University School of Medicine, Professor in Robert Woodson Medical School, and Chief of Surgery at the Cancer Institute of New Jersey, Surgeon-in-Chief of Montefiore Medical Center, New York, and several others. He's an active clinical surgeon. We have to note that he's not just an administrator, but he's excelled as a clinical surgeon. And he is internationally known for his work in colorectal cancer and liver metastasis and value-based care delivery in hospitalized patient population using a novel model of risk mitigation for patient safety. His clinical expertise includes minimally invasive colorectal, pancreatic, hepatic, and oncology surgeries. And he is, in addition to all this, an avid researcher. And we work together in a US-Indo TB research initiative. He has researched on novel strategies for regional treatment of liver tumors, use of proven care approach for optimizing cancer outcomes, and value-based redesign of care delivery mode for advanced illnesses and cancer continuum. He has over 230 peer-reviewed publications, abstracts, and book chapters, and has been an invited speaker for multiple national and international meetings.